All right, recording starting, and today we're talking about Storyteller. Story.
You,
See, we're talking about stories, telling stories.
oh my God. I love how we don't have an actual proper intro of like who we are, what our show's called. We should probably fix that at some point.
Well, why
Uh,
would we? Why would we need to have that? They could. Anyone who's watching could just see the name of the thing. It's the H&P Oddcast. This is much.
Presentation,
This is much. No, no,
branding.
no, no. This is much more natural. This is much more natural. Do you want us to have like an opening like PewDiePie used to have?
No, not quite there. It's just like, oh, it's almost like we're just throwing it together. Like, yep, we're doing this. We're talking about this episode. It's like we can definitely do better. I mean, would you do that in a courtroom case, Hollowix?
Yes.
Oh God. And
I
this is
would.
why you don't
I
win
wouldn't.
cases.
That. I was actually just gonna say that. That is why. There's a reason I'm doing YouTube and not currently in the courtroom. Ugh. But anyway, yeah. So we're talking
Hmm.
about episode 14 of season one. We're I think now a little more than halfway through. How many episodes are in this season? Let me double check.
Uh, 24. DS9. Duet.
No, so
Because
there's
they'll tell
20. So
me.
we've been
Yep.
we're almost done. We have about a quarter left.
Yep.
And so what do you think about this episode? I think I usually go first about what I say about this episode, but you go first.
It's I think like a C plus. Like I like the Jake Nog stuff, but it like all right, everyone. Just so you know, this is a TNG episode pretending to be a DS9 episode, and by that I mean literally it was pitched for season one of TNG. They didn't purchase the script, the story, but then Michael Piller was like, "Oh, he when he joined in the third season of TNG, he liked it, but they couldn't make it work on TNG." Yeah, thought it could work for DS9, which I just find really fucking weird
Well, I
because
don't
it's like,
even know. Yeah, I don't even know what like. So I mean, we'll get into it, but the A plot is O'Brien and Bashir heading to some remote Bajoran village, and it's weird
mhm,
because they don't really act like a lot of other Bajorans. There's a few small details that don't really carry over that the series is usually good about keeping track of,
mhm.
and so it's like I don't know. I guess that makes sense. Why if it's a TNG plot, it's also like a little bit weird when you incorporate Bajorans. At the same time, like I don't know how this would work in TNG. Like I don't
I
really yeah.
I I mean they had like sort of it is weird because they don't feel like Bajorans. And the thing is like, okay, put this random species on a planet that like O'Brien and someone else like, on the Enterprise like, hey, we're coming by and we need to go to one of the outlying colonies to help. We're stretched thin as it is. Please help us. We are trying to get back on board. It's like it's the fact that it's Bajorans, but they're not acting like Bajorans. It
Yeah, I
feels
mean
like
like
that's the
like a small detail I noticed when I was rewatching. There's like a scene where the sort of elder and it's a funny scene I'll talk about when we get to it, but he's trying to determine like who's the person who's meant to be there. He grabs Bashir's
hmm
hand, says no, and then he grabs O'Brien's hand and says, "Ah, yes, the prophet sent you." And I'm like, so the Bajorans when they're like testing someone's like paw or whatever, they grab the
it's
ear.
the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to grab the hand is like, again, it's one of those things where they're generally pretty consistent with that. So to have him just like grab the hand, I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, nah, he's somehow like spiritually examining them. I'm like, okay, that's not how you normally do it, but sure, whatever. And it's just like
Yeah.
that might be some of the stuff that like carries over where it's like, yeah, they don't really know. This doesn't really feel like a Bajoran plotline. It doesn't really feel like a DS9 episode, except for what I would say is the B plot, which I actually do really like the B plot.
Yeah.
And it's one of those
It
situations where I think the B plot could use a lot more fleshing out. It's
yeah. Yeah.
it's kind of presented in a very uh like I guess the best way to say it is it's presented in it's a B plot manner where it's resolved very quickly once like the character drama is resolved.
hmm
So, I guess we can kind of just get into more of the details. So the A plot is O'Brien and Bashir are sent off to deal with. They're told that a village is in danger and there's going to be a catastrophe and everyone's going to be like everyone's lives is in danger. And which is weird because that's all they tell Cisco. Cisco, like when O'Brien asks, like, did they tell us anything else? He's like, no, that's all they said. I'm like, okay, so if you actually believe they're in danger, you should be sending more than just 2 people. Like, this is
Mm-hmm.
a whole village. It's like, oh, catastrophe? We should probably send a whole team, right? It's like, no, just 2 people. It's like, okay. And if you don't really believe they're in danger, like if you kind of think like maybe they're exaggerating, if they're not giving us details, we can't really trust whatever they say. So we're just going to send some people to check it out. But the way that there's a justification Cisco uses for something else that makes it sound like he does treat this as a credible threat. So it's a bit weird.
Mm-hmm.
And the B plot is about 2 Bajoran clans are basically fighting over a land dispute, and Cisco is basically Cisco and the Federation are essentially tasked with negotiating and resolving this dispute.
Right.
And the B plot has kind of a tagged on B plot, so it's like it's C plot, but it's also just like it doesn't really it's directly tied into the B plot where Jake and Cisco, or I'm sorry, Jake and Nog are hanging out and they find a girl they like and they're trying to woo her and all that jazz. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean I like the B and C plot a lot better than I like the A plot. The A plot is weird, and like I feel like there's some
Yeah.
questionable. I feel like there's some honestly questionable moral decisions that they make. Like I know it's Star Trek, I know it's the future, I know it's like like some cultures are very different when we're talking about like the nature of how you interact with them and what they believe in and how you have to sort of be tolerant of that part of it. But it's also kind of like entire cultures being gaslit, and
Yeah.
like no one really wants to. I mean, obviously we'll get into it, but like entire cultures being gaslit to believing something is a threat to them when it's not. But like the idea of that threat unifies them, and I'm like that sounds
Looks at
more very
history.
like
Looks at like
I know. That's like the number one
that.
way you control people is giving them something to be afraid of. So it's just like, I mean,
Well, not
I
just
don't really
that,
like
but
this.
it's like the first step towards atrocity. Basically, it's
Yeah, and I
like
mean,
yeah, like
I guess I'll say this: like, it seems as there's only a positive outcome to this, but that's not really a good justification for allowing this to continue. This really should be something where it's like the end result is, yeah, we're telling you all the truth, and this is over. Like, you guys have the right to know that you're being very easily tricked. In fact, I feel like you should also feel a little bit of shame, but at the same time, it's like it's like
no,
look,
no, 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 no. It's a Plato reference. It's a Plato reference. Okay, it's the
okay, sure,
cave.
okay. So when next time I act stupid in public, I'll be like, don't worry, guys, it's just a Plato reference.
Yes, yes. Like,
Look,
listen,
sir,
listen. It's
I thought I was invisible and I beat someone to death and stole his wife. It's just a Plato reference to the ring. Oh my god. Like I'm sorry, it's just a Plato
uh,
reference. It's really weird, and like I don't like the outcome. I don't think it's presented in a very weird way, and it's also again it's one of those things where there's the whole. Do you know what the term verisimilitude is?
I've seen it. I don't remember the definition off the top of my head.
It's basically the idea of like the degree to which something is made
The appearance
believable.
made true.
Yeah,
Yeah, basically, it's like it
and
appears true even if it's not
yeah,
true.
you
Like,
can get away with a lot of stuff, especially with sort of the wacky nature of Star Trek. You can get away with a lot of stuff, like as long as it's sort of presented in a, like I guess for lack of a better term, a cool way.
hmm
If it's like okay, this is neat, this is cool, you can kind of get away with some moral questions that don't really raise too big of an issue. I mean, we have the with the passenger where at the end of the episode it's revealed that his entire like brain is downloaded onto this chip, and this woman just like fires a laser at it and kills it or destroys the chip, and I'm like, huh, there's some actual like moral questions about that. Like sure, she has jurisdiction over him, but it's also on a Federation space station, and I don't know if the Federation agreed to an execution of a prisoner. So there's like
yeah,
there's some morally questionable elements to that, but it's presented very quickly. It's succinctly like it kind of can get past the smell test. It's only when you break it down like we are
when
doing
you're
like
anal
insane
like
people.
us.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
when
yeah.
you're being overly like examining the material, that's when those questions come up. Here it's like no, it's actually pretty surface level that this is dumb, and it doesn't get past the
Yeah.
smell test. But so we can now sort of start going into the scenes. So the first scene we have is standard scene where they're sort of explaining all this stuff. Okay, so we have the 2 parties about to come in to discuss the land dispute. O'Brien walks up to Cisco and asks if someone else can take his job on the mission. and he tries to give some half-hearted excuse to Cisco, and Cisco's like, you're gonna go, Chief. I need you on this. They said this is a danger, and I want you there. And then O'Brien's asking like, but does Bashir need to come? And Cisco's like, well, there's potentially someone in danger, so I'm sending a doctor. So
Hmm.
it becomes clear that O'Brien just doesn't want to hang out with Bashir. And
Yeah.
Bashir comes into the frame. He's like, "Hey, isn't it a wonderful opportunity? We're gonna get to know each other. This is gonna be great." And
Yeah,
O'Brien just
this is
like
the
rolls
start,
his eyes, like,
boy.
"Oh my god, I hate this." But at the same time, those who know DS9 also know that these two become like the best friends. It's the greatest bromance like in TV history. So it's
Like,
nice to see it have started out like so rocky, because it's like, oh, like this is why I like DS9. These characters develop. Again,
yeah,
I've
and
said this a few times, but it's just you don't see some of that in TNG. You don't see two characters start off not really friendly with one another, and it slowly improve over the course of the series to the point where you're actually invested in their relationship. Like,
hmm, hmm.
there's a few elements in TNG. Later TNG, they do some stuff with like Deanna and Worf that I'm kind of like, oh, I kind of like some of the build up to that, and then they kind of just abandon it, which is like, all right. I mean, I wasn't super invested in that relationship, but it feels weird that you just abandoned it. And they also had the Geordi Data
Yeah,
friendship, but the Geordi Data friendship kind of just was implied to already exist. Like, I think
yeah.
we see them hanging out, we see them spending time together. Like, they're clearly friendly to each other, so there's not really any development. Again, that's fine. Like, these people have served on the same
Plus,
ship
there's the
for.
fact of like any episode with Jory's like, okay, is Jordy gonna get the shaft and come off as creepy? Yes, no, let's see.
See, I mean, we can have a whole video discussing like Geordi as a character, because I like Geordi, but he's always like B or A tier as a side character. As the main character, he
Yeah.
drops to like C at most, and I'm like, come on, guys, what are you doing? Give this guy some episodes where he can shine. But like when he's a side
Got
character, I'm
cool
like,
visor.
well,
Give
I
him.
think I like him. He's cool. Like he's like,
Yeah.
I think it's mostly just the actor who presents himself as like, because unlike Data, there's nothing explicitly cool, like I said, about Geordi, other than the fact that he has the visor. But
Hmm.
it's like, I don't know, the actor does a pretty good job. Like, he's kind of one of the younger people in the crew, but he's clearly very smart and talented. He's pragmatic, but he has like a, he the actor does a great job. So it's just disappointing that
Hmm.
like he doesn't get more. But that's a different discussion to be had.
Well, when he does get more, it's like, ooh, yep, yep, this is a creepy one. Here we go.
We asked for this. But yeah, so then we get on the let's see. I mean, we have a small scene with Kira and Cisco. They're sort of just chatting, where Kira sort of says like, about these negotiations. These two groups are like live on the harshest parts of the planet. As such, they're kind of some like very hardened people. And Cisco makes a. I like that Cisco makes like a baseball metaphor, and Kira just doesn't get it. He's like, yeah,
Yeah,
this is
this
my
is
time.
okay.
It's like, this is not my time up at the plate. No, it's not my first time up at the plate. And she's like, what? And he doesn't even bother explaining it. It's not like, nope, it's a baseball metaphor. He's just like, nope, I got this.
Okay, it is.
And
You
then
go
it's
sit
revealed
down.
that one of the leaders, I believe it's the leader of the Paku, is a young girl, Vera Sewell. So that's obviously a shock to them. Is I guess they weren't briefed on the fact that the leader of this entire tribe, clan, they just call them people. The leader of these people is a young girl, which
It's probably like a. Hang on, memory beta. Maybe it's brought up there more. That's okay. They're a group of Bajorans who isolate themselves from the rest of Bajor. They have been rivals of the Navat. So yeah, they're basically like an uh, um, I don't want to say like the Amish, but it's like they choose to self isolate, and so they're probably ethnically different from most of the surrounding Bajorans, just because of like, hey, when you self isolate for even like a century, it's like, yeah, there's going to be wild divergences
oh
from the
sure,
standard.
sure. And I just
But
wanted to point out something, because when I was taking notes for this, and it's been a while, unfortunately. When I was taking notes, I did write down a note. You got mad at something. I don't know what you got mad at, but you yelled, "Some people don't deserve to live in the future," and I'm going to try and figure out what
hang,
that's applying to, because I'm pretty sure it's not applying to this particular issue I just thought of. But why is a young girl who's about 14, She's about like Jake and Nog's age. Why is she leading a
Mhm.
whole group of people?
It's probably a case of like absolute, just like, hey, this is tradition. It goes to the firstborn
Yeah,
of the previous
I
head.
think yeah, I believe her. Like she mentions, her father was the previous head,
And it might be he recently died, and they're like, yeah, it's a bit up in the air. And that might be why she's partly like so worried about this. Of just like, if she fucks this up,
no, I mean I agree.
uh,
Like her character is actually pretty decently written in this episode. My concern is more in the sense of like, okay, you're even if they're sort of an isolated part of Bajor, they're still a spacefaring civilization. Have they really not
mhm.
developed past hereditary like leadership?
Um, so
I guess I just find it a bit like it's just weird. Like you know,
there's probably checks in place about it, but also it's just like, again, they self-isolate. They probably stick close to their traditions. Usually
again,
that's
like
why
sure,
groups
but
self-isolate.
it's just such a weird. It's like this is a very dangerous tradition to kind of have. Hey, we're having a negotiation with our rival tribe. Uh, like let's send our leader, who's this young girl, and like you don't have like an advisor or a steward who's kind of like guiding her through the early parts of her career. You don't have someone like because real life had that. Like if you go back to like monarchs and stuff like that,
Regent.
when you had a
Regent.
child, yeah, you'd have a regent because the child is not ready to rule.
It
And
might, well, remember this girl, how old is this girl? Does it say? I really shouldn't
again,
say it that way, but
she's about as old as Jake and Nog. That is like the
mm,
implication. Maybe a little bit older.
so so I'm looking. So memory beta says early 2050s, and it's 2069 here. So according to StarTrek.com and the Star Trek Encyclopedia, she was 15 this year. So here's the thing: it wasn't necessarily impossible
I mean,
at
yeah, I
that.
guess, and she doesn't do a terrible job, so maybe that's just. Again, it's one of those things where I think there's some questionable issues of like, hey, these very important negotiations, the person leading them and the person pretty much doing all the like, we don't see anyone else like on her team negotiating.
Yeah, there should be advisors there
Yeah,
with
there
her
should be
though.
like advisors right over her shoulder, and like maybe you could have something where she doesn't listen to them or something because she's trying to prove herself. But I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. But at the same time, it's like she doesn't have any advisors, and I'm sitting there like, this seems very stupid, and I feel like this wouldn't exist in the future. But yeah,
Not real
but
cringe.
anyway, so we then get to an awkward scene where O'Brien and Bashir are in the runabout, and
Mm-hmm.
O'Brien is clearly just not wanting to deal with Bashir, and Bashir clearly notices this. He's like, I have a question. I'd like an honest answer. It's like, do I annoy you? And O'Brien gives a very unconvincing no. Well, what kind of question is that? You don't annoy me at all. I just don't want to talk to you. It's like, well, what are you doing? It's like, oh, I'm thinking, and then he comes up with like a lame excuse, and it's very clear O'Brien doesn't believe him. It's not a bad scene. The way it's shot is interesting because like O'Brien refused to even look at Bashir, but you can kind of have
Mm-hmm.
both of their faces on screen at the same time. So O'Brien appears standoffish, but you can kind of see both the reactions. It's not terribly shot. I actually do sort of there's some good cinematography with that particular scene, but it's very clear
Mm-hmm.
that O'Brien's trying to be friend or Bashir's trying to be friendly. O'Brien doesn't really want to be friends with him.
Nerd
Which
doctor.
I can't remember. Maybe you could look it up in memory beta. Didn't they start writing these two more as friends because the actual actors became friends? I could have sworn I had
It
heard
wouldn't be on
something like that.
memory, but your friend here is
No.
always memory alpha with the show, directly. I pretty much use memory beta in case of like, okay,
No.
this
Yeah.
isn't directly. Um, I don't remember like reading that somewhere, but I wouldn't be surprised. Why did O'Brien and Bashir become
Yeah, I
friends?
could have sworn because like the
Uh,
actors were pretty friendly in real life, so I think they tried to translate that onto the screen. I could have sworn I had heard something like that.
uh, I am trying. Um, yeah, I'm not seeing. God damn it! Why must you have a silly little apostrophe in your name, Irishman?
It's
Okay.
not a big deal, but either way.
Uh, Apparently they sung Jerusalem and Explorers. Which episode? Oh, that's a later. That's a yeah. I'm not sure why. Uh, um, um, yeah. It does. Yeah, it doesn't really say that they themselves like they are friends from what I understand, but it's not like oh the friendship influenced the show. It's just a case of like no, they wanted to write these guys
Okay,
like
I mean, fair.
being
I
home.
could have sworn I had heard something along those lines, but it's not a big deal. And one thing I do like, I don't know if you can really interpret it as a character moment, but so Julian asks O'Brien to call him Julian instead of Sir, and O'Brien kind of asks like, "Is that an order?" And Bashir's like, "Of course not. You know, and it's just that I'd prefer if you called me by my first name." And then like it sort of cuts further ahead where they're ready to land on the planet, and O'Brien says like, "Ready to beam down any time," and then he finishes off with Julian. I'm not sure if I interpret that as like he's actually starting to accept Julian as his friend, or if he's just saying that to placate him. I kind of feel like it's
I
maybe a
think at
little.
uh, I would say placating at the moment. It's like oh, I might as well go along with it to make this bearable
I guess so, but
until
like
you know
I
I
could have
can.
like to me, I guess just the way I felt like it was delivered felt a little bit more like he's trying to like, all right, I'm extending the olive branch here because this is also the first time in the scene when he turns to look at Julian.
Hmm.
Like, so I kind of interpret that as like, okay, he's instead because the whole scene is him not looking at Julian. They're having this clearly stilted conversation, and then you know, as he says Julian, he turns to look at Julian. So maybe I can kind of look at
Hmm.
that as like, this is sort of representing that he's opening up. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. But they arrive on, I guess this isn't Bajor. It's a different planet, right? It's like the
No, it's Bajor. I'm pretty
okay,
sure.
yeah, yeah. So okay,
Let me
so
double check.
they arrive on Bajor and they're told like, okay, what's the threat? What's the danger? You told us your entire village is in jeopardy. And they're like, yeah, we'll bring you to it. And they bring to this old man who's very old, very sick. And they're like, yeah, so he seems to not be in good condition. So what's going on? And they're like, yeah, he's sick. He's in danger. It's like, okay, but what about the others who are in danger? It's like, well, yeah, like the others are in danger. If this man dies, our whole village is in jeopardy.
Yeah, this is why. This is why. This is fucking why I yelled that at you. This is fucking why. It's like you said everyone was in danger. Yes, if he dies, who will do the ceremony? It's like, that's your problem. You,
Well, he's like,
you.
if he dies, we all die. And I'm like, okay, I guess that's an issue. Um, we return back to the DS9, and they're having a conversation, sort of an introductory conversation. We have Woban, who is the leader of uh, the Navarro or whatever. No, not the Navarro. The
Good.
yeah, and we have Varys, who's leader of the Paku. Cisco talking to him, and Woban is being very like, oh man, these Cardassians, their Cardassian replicators are great. They can create a fine large pie. He's having like a jolly old time, and
Hmm.
Varys is like, oh, I did not come here to eat, Commander. Like she's very very like indignant, being very overly serious, whereas Woban's clearly there to, this is like meant to relax. This is an introductory meeting before the negotiations. So we kind of
Hmm.
come to the negotiations more fresh, and it ends with a scene where we have Quark serving drinks, and he hands like alcoholic beverages to everybody, but he hands like a bubbly juice to uh, Varys. She gets mad at being called little lady, and she throws the drink in his face. Which this is
Yeah.
like don't get me wrong, I do like her as a character. I do like sort of the expression, but it's like you're very clearly not good at this. Like this is like the biggest faux pas you can kind of do right now is just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna attack the host at the pre-negotiation. I'm like, you're not starting off good here. Although
Yeah.
I do like how quickly Quark adapts to it, where instead of like complaining, he's just like, I'm still charging her for the drink.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
As he should. She
Well,
was
I mean,
very.
I was watching it and I was also thinking like I do like the fact that the Federation is like using Quark as a host. They're treating him like, yeah, you're the sort of the cultural liaison, the
He's the head of
ambassador to the
the.
like merchants of this like station. Like Cork's an important person on the station. He's in
No,
some
no, no.
like
He's not the ambassador to them. He's the representative for the Merchants
yeah,
Association
that's what I mean.
to the.
Sorry.
Yeah, but
But
yeah,
you know, he has an important position on the station, and it seems like you know at least Cisco seems to recognize that. It includes him in certain things. Because I'm not gonna lie, like with how questionable Quark is on a lot of things, I'd be like, I don't know if I want to invite him into some of these meetings. Like, I feel like he's
yeah.
gonna try and use the knowledge he gets here for some personal gain.
Based. Do it, Quark.
Well,
Do it.
probably base, but at the same time, you. But uh, you know, as she storms out, we head to the promenade where we see Jake and Nog throwing stuff at people. They have these weird aliens that I've never seen in anything. They have these like cool head tails. They almost look like more like Star Wars aliens. Uh, and
Hmm.
we just have Nog throw something at them. Uh, and Jake and Nog, like Jake just wants to go play baseball on the holodeck. Nog says, "Baseball's a stupid game. Even humans stopped playing it hundreds of years ago." Which, oof,
Oof.
as someone who likes baseball, this hurts. But it's not wrong.
Uh.
He's like, baseball is slow and
uh.
boring. I'm like, oh my god, stop it. You're attacking me with the truth.
Oh God. You poor
Uh,
boy.
yeah, and then you know, Odo comes in. He's like, he tells them, hey, I don't want you like leaning over the promenade or hanging over the promenade. And they're like, oh, but it's easier to see stuff from up here. It's like, well, is there anything to see? They're like, well, no. So he's like, then you can watch nothing from up here, as he tells them to get up. Uh, Again, I do like how you know we were talking about it before. I think Odo like very good with working with children, despite the fact that he's sort of like you know the awkward outsider.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's always very
Well,
like
they don't really judge him.
well,
Like,
he's always
ooh.
like yeah, he's always a lot more like caring and gentle when he's kind of giving orders to these kids. Like with an adult, you could see him actually like getting more firm and yelling at not yelling, but like talking to them in a way that's like if you don't do this, you're in trouble. Here, it's like no, he's kind of just like he's telling the kids as like you know authority figure would. It's like look, you can stand up here. I need you to stand up here, and but he's doing it with enough respect, and they still listen to him
Hmm.
until he walks away, or then they immediately sit back down. Which
Yep.
I mean, I don't know what Odo thought was going to happen. Uh, I have a feeling he's smart enough to know that was going to happen. He's like, look, I can't monitor these kids all day. They're just going to keep doing that. I'll just keep coming back and telling them to stop doing that. It's almost like he knows it's his job to do it. So it's like, as long as I do that, I'm not liable if they get hurt.
I mean, true though. Not
True.
liable.
Um, and then Nog sees what he calls the most beautiful sight he's ever seen, and says he's they you know pan over to see Varys. I'm trying to get a thing because the transcript says it's Varys and her advisor, but I don't remember seeing an advisor. Let's see here. Oh well, he's walking behind her, but his face isn't even on screen. So sure,
Mm.
I guess it's her advisor. I would
Hmm.
not have been able to tell it wasn't just someone else walking in the background.
Yeah, just like, oh, it's just a random person who's yeah.
Although it's like I do like
Uh,
this. I do like this. Nog is like, oh my god, I've never seen anything so beautiful, and Jake's just like, she's all right. Like she's mid. I'm like, all right. I guess you just guys have different tastes, but and Nog's like, I have to meet her, and they start running off. I just
the sound Nog might.
I find it funny. He's like, you have one. He's like, oh, she's the most beautiful, and Jake's just like, mid, walks away.
Mid.
I'm like,
Yeah, yeah,
all right, Jake. I mean, all right. Like,
pretty bad.
I feel like you don't know this person, and you're kind of just like, you know, throwing a little shade at them. But
Yeah,
whatever.
bait.
And then this is the scene I was talking about before, where Bashir's like doing some scans on the old man. He suddenly wakes up and yells, "Oh, the dull rock!" Uh, and let's see, he's asking, "Is it time?" They're like, "Look, these two, it's 2 hours before nightfall." And the guy grabs Bashir's hand. He says, "The prophet sent you, didn't they?" He like grabs his hand and says, "No, there's something wrong. It must be your companion." And then they like bring over O'Brien. The guy is like, let's see, closer, come closer. I knew the prophets would not fail us. You may leave now, both of you. As he seems happy with O'Brien, but I'm not gonna lie. When I watched this scene, I was like, okay, so knowing what we know about the episode, that this is all a really big gaslight. Like,
Hmm. Hmm.
what was he? What was he sensing in these people?
Oh, he was like it's a part of the spectacle. It's
Yeah,
a
it's
part of
part.
the spectacle.
I agree. It's part of the spectacle. But like first off, he wasn't sensing their paw because he would have had to like grab their ears for that. So all I can interpret is he looked at Bashir. I'm not gonna lie, when I watched it, I was like, brown, not this one. Give me the other one.
Oh
This
my
one's good.
God, Alex.
What?
Um,
I think that's the only thing you could tell by looking at Bashir. He hadn't even talked to the guy. He's like, no, you
he
don't look
might have
right.
heard
Next
him
person.
coming. He might have heard him coming and like heard the way like Bashir talked and such.
I don't know.
And
It comes across because like he does legitimately like he seems like he just woke up. He's looking at this man. Oh, are you the one the prophet sent? No, go away. Let me see the other one. All right, this one's good. I'm like, what else do you know about them? You weren't sensing their paw. Look, I'm just saying the old man might be a
yeah,
little racist.
I, I suppose. God, you're gonna get us canceled.
I'm condemning it.
Yeah, but it wasn't even brought up in the episode at all, and it's from the 90s. Like, oh my
I
God.
find it.
Okay.
Look, I'm sorry if you watch the scene. That's the joke. I laughed at that like self joke to me. I'm like, what did he see in Bashir? It's like, oh my god, is the old man racist? Like that's all I could think of.
Oh God.
It's funny to me. It's like because like again, we know this is all just a performance, so he's not sensing anything. He's like, no, not you, the other one. I'm like, okay. Yeah, let's see. And this is where they kind of explain what a Dao Rock is. They have Farron explain it, which is I guess just one of the people like in the village. I can't remember if he's one of the people who legitimately believes in it or not, but he explains that Sarah, the old man, uh, he's suffering from systemic organ failure due to, he's basically just dying of old age. Uh, and Farron's basically just like, is there anything, like, we need the old man alive or the Dalrock will be here soon. And they're like, look, the Dalrock is a terrible creature that lives in the woods just north of the valley. Every year at the end of the harvest, it appears. And they're like, oh, it's going to come here tonight. It's like, yes, it always comes for 5 nights. This will be the fourth, and only the Sarah is strong enough to defeat it. So
Sarah.
again, this really like weird like ceremony of like fighting off this beast happens, and I mean we can kind of skip ahead a little bit to like what happens there because the next one's just a Jake and Nog scene. So we get to the like we get to the like scene where they're in the village square and Bashir and O'Brien are basically watching them drag the Sarah out. He stands on a rock and starts giving this long speech like, oh, we fear the Dalrock. The Dalrock knows our fear, but we're gonna send him away. And then like the whole village starts chanting. Uh, and like, I'm trying to get a picture. So the Dalrock is this just like weird moving purple cloud in the sky.
Yeah, and they 1984 hate at it, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean they're just
Like,
like they're just shouting at like the whole thing. Uh, and then let's see here. Uh, I'm trying to think of like yeah. So after like they banish the creature, uh, oh wait, no, the Dalrock blows up a building.
yeah.
Let's see. Da, da, da. Oh yeah, Sarah basically calls up O'Brien and says like, "You must join me. You're my successor." Uh, and O'Brien is basically like, okay, the village will not be destroyed. He's like, what do I have to do? He's like, yeah, just keep repeating this again. It's like, the village won't be destroyed. And then the Dalrock leaves. And everyone cheers, like,
Yeah.
yeah, the village is strong, the village is strong. Uh, and O'Brien's just like confused the whole time. He's like, what did I get involved in? Uh, oh, and then
You're good.
right on cue, Sarah collapses again. Bashir runs up to him and does his primary job up until this point in the series, which is declare people dead.
He's dead.
He's like, runs up. He's dead, sir. It's like, well, duh. Like, thanks. At least your scan was able to tell us.
Do you remember? That just reminded me of the Futurama joke about what they did with the Star Trek fans who wouldn't like recant, like pushing him into the volcano while one guy goes, "He's dead, Jim. He's dead, Jim. He's dead, Jim."
See,
Just for every one
I
of them.
thought, I thought you were referring to the episode where Bender gets really fat, or he turns into a human in the What If machine. becomes really
Oh,
fat, and then they're like, they just walk up to him like he's dead. It's like, but he just said woo. It's like,
I was just gas hidden in his fat folds.
but it's just like, oh, he just Bashir runs over. Oh, he's dead. And I'm like, oh, okay, thanks, Bashir. Like, I guess that's your job
Thanks,
is to tell us
Bashir.
when people die. Pretty crappy doctor if you
Yep.
can't keep them alive. But
Um.
yeah, and then Farron basically like stands up. The prophets have sent us to success. Like literally, this man's body is still warm. And he's like, the Sarah has left us, but the prophets sent us a successor, a new Sarah to tell the story. And he like
Caesar is
holds up,
dead. Long
and,
live Caesar.
and then holds up Bashir, and Bashir's just like, oh no, what did I get involved with? Um,
Um.
let's see. And then we can.
The Ir-
So that's
the
basically like
Irish
what's
must.
going on. That's what's going on with this. First off, how do you think the village would interpret the fact that like, hey, this weird alien man from a different like faction has come here and he's like our new village elder?
Yeah, I. This is I would imagine if other Bajorans came here, like first off, what the fuck did they do with the Cardassians? You know what I mean?
I
Like
mean, it could have just been a thing where the Cardassians left these people alone.
they're like, listen, they're weirdos. They're not worth our time.
Well, it's like
Nothing valuable in their life.
the implication is always revealed is that the Cardassians they came to essentially like extort resources from these people because they were running out of resources on their own planet.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, if there's no resources in this particular province, and these people are not like they're super isolated, so they're not really technologically advanced. There's nothing of value there. Just leave them. Like if we want something from them later, we'll get it. But maybe they just never wanted anything from them.
Maybe it. I think it's just so weird because like it seems like for the Cardassian colonialism is weird because like me like with real world colonialism is like, okay, are you just trying to like play a game of political sabotage of the other side that might colonize it? Are you actually trying to settle there? And Ducat says things in the future that come off as that, like, oh, they were trying to settle it. But I'm just saying, like, why were these weirdos allowed to stay outside when, with how whipped up they'll get about this thing they do? Like, I feel like that's just asking for trouble. You know what I mean?
Well, in all
Like,
fairness, they had the Dow Rock. Maybe they sicked the Dow Rock on the Cardassians.
on the team up of the century, Bajorans and the Dalrock.
But I
Uh,
mean, that's another thing to discuss about like, and when it becomes more relevant, we can discuss it. But the Cardassian, like, in a galactic civilization, there's almost no reason for like competitive colonialization. To a degree, it's like, well, what I mean is like,
so
we know from a later episode, a very like an episode that you and I both hate. There's like two M class worlds relatively close by that are uninhabited. Uh,
mhm.
you might recall the episode I'm referring to where they bring up that information. But I'm like, okay, so
uh,
if the Cardassians arrived in this system, they surely would have detected those other M-class worlds. Why would they bother fighting with Bajorans to take their resources when there's just uncontested resources right over there?
so one, those planets might not have had the resources they were particularly looking for, and two, basically the Cardassians are like, yeah, we are an empire. We do not this is all ours. It's like manifest destiny. The thing
Sure.
with colonialism is so a short little history lesson here. Despite what popular and Marxist historians will tell you, colonialism really wasn't about resource extraction, except in one case, and that was the Congo. And we all are like, oh my god, the Congo was a fucking mess, right? But in most
That's the general
cases,
consensus I have. I totally know everything about that.
okay. Long story short, it was run as a personal fiefdom of the King of Belgium, who was like, "Yeah, it's a humanitarian thing. I'm teaching them Christianity," and so he was running a nationwide slave, like rubber slave plantation. Like it
Ooh.
legitimately, they eventually had to ask the Belgian government to like, okay, take that away from your king. He is the worst human being. Be glad we're not deposing him by force. But anyways, so but outside of that, like the rationale was either it's a good naval port to keep trade safe, aka Britain's main reason for doing stuff, and why for a lot of time Britain's early colonialism of making protectorates was at the request of natives who were basically like, yeah, we're being threatened by stronger, more tyrannical powers, please protect us. And Britain's like, okay, I guess we gotta be the peacekeepers here. But after that, once the Scramble Africa came, the reason why the Scramble for Africa came wasn't because of the absolute clear value of the land and resources, but a fear of what if the other side gets it and they can make they get an edge on us. We can't let this happen. We gotta take it first. That's the whole rationale. It's a case of I can't trust the other side because if I was in their shoes, I wouldn't be able to trust me either. So it's like, yeah, yeah. Anyways, sorry,
And that
sorry, sorry,
no,
sorry.
that's our history lesson for the day. It's nice. We learned about the Congo. Uh,
Yes, the
but
Congo.
we return to Jake and Nog. They are hunting down this girl trying to. Pike, can you quickly put on push to talk?
Yeah, one sec.
Yeah, but they're looking for this girl. They knock on her quarters, and they introduce themselves. And one thing I do like is Varys particularly notices the fact that when Jake introduces himself as Jake Sisko, she's like, Cisco? Like, oh wait, this is the guy who's in charge of the negotiations. Like, or this is the guy's son at least. So I do kind of like that. It shows maybe a little bit more cunning on her end, where she's like, huh, maybe I should entertain these two, given the fact that this person right here might be of importance. So she lets them. The boys, just walk in and sit down uninvited. And Nog wants to personally welcome her to DS9. They want to give her a tour of the station. Let's see. I love how the tour of the station really just involves oh, there's a Klingon freighter leaving soon, and oh, we can go watch the wormhole open and close. I'm like, I guess that's really all you could do on the station. I don't know how much more
Yeah,
fun
besides go to a
kids can.
holodeck, but
Well,
we
we
don't
know what
take
those
the
are
kids.
for. Yes, we know what those are for. Kids are not ready for that. Uh, but I do like that sort of Varys is interested in the wormhole, and kind of the nice part of this is she's been trying to act mature so that she could properly represent her people, and now she's kind of being given an opportunity to act more like a kid. So she hangs out with Nog and Jake, and they go out and have fun, hanging around the promenade. And let's see. Da, da, da. Oh, there's a weird scene in Quark's bar. I wonder what was that about. I forget. I think it's just it feels like it's just a weird scene because Kira and Quark are having a conversation, and Kira clearly does not like Quark, uh, and they're kind of just talking about oh, how are the negotiations coming along, and Kira's just better make it a double. They're not going very well. Let's see.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Uh,
did they already bring up
it,
the issue? I think they already brought up the issue of what exactly is the debate in regards to this
it's a
land
border
dispute.
dispute based on the river of
Yeah, so the treaty was very clearly stated that the boundary between the two territories is the river. The Cardassian occupation diverted the river, changed its course, and it's moved into the again. I'm trying to remember the names of them. What are they
bought
called?
territory.
Yeah,
It's
it's moved into Navat territory. So Varys is basically so that land is ours now. And he's like, no, while we agreed initially that the river functioned as a barrier, like that land is ours. It's not an outsider influencing that is not fair. And I think we briefly had a conversation because there's some legal aspects to what this means,
it
and
would basically you look at the treaty exactly what it says and it's like, yeah, this is the so if it's like, oh, it's forever this river, it's like, yeah, it's the river, sorry, but
well, so
that
what I think I would actually take the almost opposite intention. So it really depends on what is the purpose of designating the river as the barrier. So there's two possible options here. If the purpose of designating the river as the barrier was so that both factions could have access to the river, that's one thing, because now the Paki or the Paku, they would not have access to the river anymore, which could actually be very damning. Like they wouldn't have like, let's assume it's a very important river, so they wouldn't have, I don't know if they need boats anymore in the future for like travel or shipping, but they wouldn't have access to any of the resources that the river entails. And if that was the purpose of the treaty, that might mean that they still have the right to use that river.
So again, like in the treaty, it would say why this was set this way and what the terms are. Is like, yeah, whatever it says in the treaty,
You
that's
would
what it
think.
is.
I mean, even
What
today,
did
we still have a lot of like actual
yeah,
legislation.
Croatia and Serbia. Yeah,
Well, yeah, but even
I'm
like in
very
modern
aware.
day, even in modern day, it's like there's always a question of like legislative intent. What is the purpose of this law? So it's the issue of like, if the law is not if one interpretation of the law doesn't achieve the purpose it was created under, there's a discussion about like, is that the correct interpretation? So obviously, there's a lot of debate among legal scholars about that. I'd imagine there's a lot of debate with international scholars regarding like treaties and what that means, because it could be that the reason the river was chosen was not because of resources to it, but because it just functioned as a simple barrier, right? It's like, hey, we need a very clear barrier to distinguish whose territory is whose. So because we're not going to draw giant invisible lines on the ground, let's just say the river. And then of course, thousands or hundreds of years pass, and that river moves. It's like, well, we still clearly should understand that like the line exists where the river was. That being said, using a river is a bad option because rivers do just move over time. Like, like they can shift
I'm
and slide. So
so yeah. Uh, in this case, that's not what happened. What happened was a case
yeah,
of the
outside interference.
Cardassians.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, God damn, I have no good choice for what to use for my fucking push to talk. But basically, it's very much just, again, like, the, this is why in these, like, in most treaties that use rivers these days, it's like they have very exact definitions of what they're trying to say. Of, like, yeah, this, and this. And it's like, and of course, there's always the understanding of like, okay, you want to dispute it. Well, you can dispute it all you want, but either you're going to accept it or we're going to have a fight about it. And listen, I'm just saying, violence is the ultimate authority in these situations. Long story short.
Well, it's weird you bring that up because, when Cisco asks this girl like, "Hey, so we just wasted 5 hours of unproductive negotiations. Why are you here?" And she's like, "I would think that'd be obvious. I want to defend the interests of my people. Because if the other side wins, like they lose land, or they lose. Well, they don't lose land, I guess. But they're basically like they're not their rights would not be enforced, which is kind of the issue. And Cisco's basically like pressuring her. It's like, is this what you like? If you're not going to negotiate here, it's going to lead to war. We discussed that the other day, where it's like, like in a lot of ways, violence is the opposite of politics. If you fail to use politics, the only answer is violence. And she's right now refusing to be political here. She's refusing to negotiate.
Well, I personally disagree. I think fundamentally politics and violence go hand in hand,
Oh
and
no,
because,
I
because
agree. I think it's just more of an issue of like the use of politics is sort of a abstaining from violence with an understanding that the violence is on the table. Like you don't want to resort to that. It's the soft hand and the the it's the soft hand and the sword. Like so it's like, okay, the sword's still there. The soft hand only has any power because people don't want to use the sword. So politics only has power because people don't want to resort to the alternative. And in this case, she's really not resorted. She's not doing politics at all. She's not negotiating. She's not giving any sort of leeway. She's like, no, I want it my way or the highway. And as a result, like Cisco's saying, like, look, you're risking war here. And she's like, my people will die for what we feel. It's like, are you sure about that? Is that what you want? So
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
she's like, yeah, but the land belongs to us. Like, yeah, but the Navat don't agree. Like, again, it's like if you're not going to compromise in any single way, you're going to get in, like this is going to lead to war. And you know, I guess one thing I do like is that Cisco doesn't immediately condemn the use of war, but he's at least pushing the thing of like you need to engage in politics before war. You know, it's kind of like you need to come here to negotiate. If you're not willing to negotiate, it's going to result in war. I don't think you're ready for that. Let's see. He's like, I believe in people who work together to find reasonable solutions to their problems. I hope you do as well. And she's like, look, what you hope is no concern of mine. Anything else you wish to say to me can be said tomorrow across the conference table. And Cisco's like, look, are you sure your people are as ready as you to die for this land? Because again, like her entire character right now is she's trying to put on a strong face. She's a child who's come to the negotiation table, and she's trying her best to be the tough guy, and she thinks like threatening war is the tough guy answer. When no, it's not. Like you're endangering your own people, you're endangering your standing, you're not earning any sort of like clout or respect for this. I don't think anyone would have confidence in her if her first act as ruler of her people is to start a war.
Yeah. Um.
But
Yeah.
again, like
Like.
I guess I do like the interaction with her and Cisco because he's very clearly trying to be calm and reasonable with her, but she's just not having any of it.
Baby wants. Baby wants everything. Baby at the table just wants what she wants. That's just how it be.
Let's see. Oh, let's see. So then we return. Like after she leaves, we return to the promenade, and let's see. Uh, Nog is basically like arguing. It's like just remember, I saw her first. Like Nog is super still like infatuated with her, and when they like Jake makes a point of like, then why can you barely say two words to her without getting tongue tied? Let's see.
Hmm.
And then she shows up, and of course Nog immediately gets tongue tied. He's like, "Oh, all right, we were just ugh." Let's see." So they start talking to her, and let's see. Oh, I do like the incorporation of like how Nog essentially gets to like more comfortable talking with her is when she's complaining about the fact that the negotiations are not going well. He sort of falls into those Ferengi instincts, like, "Wait, negotiation." He's like, "Look,
Good
maybe this
shit.
isn't a problem; it's an opportunity." Uh, let's see. When I have a problem I can't figure out, I ask my dad. Jake says. Uh, Nog says he would ask his dad, although I don't believe that. I think he would ask his uncle for anything. uh,
Hmm.
and let's see. Oh, I'm trying to think of like find the line. It's like, oh yeah, Varys comments that like, yeah, the Cardassians killed her parents. She doesn't have really anyone to rely on here. And let's see. I do like that they sort of bond where Jake is like, look, yeah, my mom died too. She died against the Borg. Um, is there anyone you could talk to? And she's like, look, I don't trust many people. Let's see. Uh, oh, Jake wants to. Jake starts to talk about his dad again, and now kind of gets a little jealous. Like, can we please stop talking about your father? Um,
I don't have a good dad. He's not a good uncle, but he's not a
well, I
good
think
uncle by yours.
I think his Nog is really just more jealous that like they seem to be bonding over something more than him and her. Let's see.
Yeah.
Um, I'm trying to think of like where's oh oh yeah. Then Odo comes in. It's like, guys, you're hanging over the promenade again. So then they're like, yeah, we're gonna leave, and they quickly run away.
Do I need to beat a child?
It's like, I swear to
Do
God,
I
I'm gonna
need
have
to?
to. I'm like, I will beat a child. I'll start with the Ferengi.
You know what? That fits for Odo. That fits. That checks out.
Um, we return to Bashir and O'Brien, and they're really just kind of like, yeah, we don't know what the heck's going on here. They're trying to find some sort of explanation for this. Uh, I'm trying to find because like, oh yeah, then Farron comes in and he brings like these like all these things for O'Brien. Like, yeah, they're all gifts for you. And then they bring in some visitors, some young ladies, and O'Brien's like, can I help you? It's like Bashir's like, look, I think they're offering their services, and O'Brien's like, whoa, 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 hold on, please understand, I'm married. Like I have a wife and daughter
It's
here.
wives. It's fine.
Let's see, and then, oh God, this just makes it even worse. We'll talk about that like at the end of the scene. Um, and then like O'Brien's like, look, I'm gonna have to leave at some point. Like, no, 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 you're gonna move here. Like your wife and daughter can come and live here, and you'll be our whatever our Sarai or whatever it's called. Let's see.
Yeah.
And he's just like, look, they're not going to want to live here. Like, we're not going to want to live in some weird village. Like, I don't want to be your Sarah. Like, like, but who's going to get rid of the Dal Rock? It's like, well, first off, it only comes every like 5 days, every once a year. You know, there's no reason you can't just like visit every like every year, O'Brien. You don't have to live here though. And they make the point that like, oh yeah, to defeat the Dal Rock, you have to tell the story of how we first defeated it. Uh, and
Which
let's
makes no sense because then it's like, wait, if why is it that you have to tell the story of how you first defeated it to defeat it if like but
well, I think it's like more of like the story of like the like oh, we're a united village, and by working together and by remembering us working together and being united, we can always fend it off, sort of
Mhm.
deal. I'm more or less okay with it, but you know, that's the end of the scene, and like they basically come to the conclusion that we have to figure out what the heck the Dalrock is, because they claim it's just a creature in the forest, but that is clearly something supernatural or scientific or something weird, and you know that's
Mhm.
their goal now, is to try and figure out how to get rid of it. Now, one thing I'm more uncomfortable with this because again, it's all a big scam. The Dalrock is just like is the boogeyman to unite the people. Like it's created just for
Yeah.
the soul. And I'm like, okay, so O'Brien's designated as the new Sarah, and they're offering him like all these free gifts. Like they're offering him women, and I'm like, this feels
Mm.
very like, what did the previous Sarah do? Like, did he just accept all these gifts as like a element of, yep, I'm just gonna constantly be accepting these new gifts, and I'm gonna protect the village, even though it doesn't
Basically a
really need
village
protection.
elder, I guess. It's like sure they have the magistrate, but they probably went to this guy all the time for like wisdom and such.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Um
it's also just an issue, but I guess my issue is more in the sense of like,
by the
were
way,
they
it's
get?
cult.
Yeah, well, yeah, were they giving him the same gifts that they're giving O'Brien now?
Mm.
And if they
Like,
were, it's like, well, it was. Again, we'll get more into it when they talk about the fact that this is all just very much in the realm of like they're all just being gaslit into thinking they're in danger all the time. And like, oh, like I guess again, we can have a conversation about the nature of like this does unite the people, and I guess it does make them better. That's not really a good point of view, but at least I can understand the consequentialism view of it. I'm like, okay, I don't agree with it, but I kind of understand. Once you start accepting these
mhm.
bribes, I'm like, this is more than just helping the village, isn't it?
Yeah,
It
it's a
becomes
cult.
more of like
It
you're very much valuing the higher status this gaslighting is giving you, isn't it? I don't know.
yeah.
Very questionable, and I don't think the episode really realizes what it's kind of implying. Let's
Yeah.
see. We then return to like
Listen,
the
like I said,
yeah.
some people don't deserve to be in space.
Some people do not deserve to be in space. We get another scene with Nog, Jake, and Varys. Nog explains the ninth rule of acquisition that states opportunity plus instinct equals profit. Um, let's see. They make a comment that like, oh, she doesn't really have the instincts to figure this out because she's still very new to the role. Let's
Hmm.
see. Oh, uh, Nog mentions that he stole some of his uncle's security rods so they can kind of go pull a prank. Again, I do kind of like the fact that like these kids are basically trying to like have fun, and she has these responsibilities, but they're
Yeah.
kind of pulling her away, and she's compelled to be pulled away from them because she does want to kind of live like a kid, and they have the idea of like, oh, we're gonna sneak into Odo's uh Odo's chamber or Odo's like room and steal his bucket,
Hmm. Hmm.
which I
Hmm.
find it funny because like Nog's like, don't worry, we'll give it back.
It's his
Uh,
bed. It's
eh,
funny.
yeah,
Honestly,
and
what they should do is take him to Space Las Vegas and then lock him out on a lock him. Oh no, wait, he could just fly off. Never mind. Never mind. I was gonna say take him in his bucket up to the roof of the building and leave him locked up there, but nope, he can fly because he can become a bird.
no, he does not know he can do that yet.
Soon.
Yes, soon. So they sneak into the security office. Jake is like, oh, so it's all a big prank. Like, um, Nog comes out. He has the bucket and he spills all of it on Jake. And Jake like freaks out. He's like, oh no, oh no, oh no. And Nog's like, it's oatmeal. I filmed it from the replicator, which is it's kind of even more mean spirited because it's like, wait a minute, that means Odo now has to clean out his bucket. There's just a ton of oatmeal in there.
Oh
We get the first look
god.
at the bucket. It's like a weird like flower plant thing, I guess. Which, I mean, I guess so.
Yeah, it's just a
But
bucket.
let's see. he turns them in. Cisco shows up, uh, and like I guess the implication is they're gonna get in trouble for this. Da, da,
Yeah.
da. Then we return back to the storyteller plotline, and like all these people are coming up to O'Brien, like asking him to like, oh, bless my child. It's like a and I do kind of find it funny. This is another way in which O'Brien and Cisco, I guess, can kind of like relate to one another. Cisco being treated as the emissary, and now O'Brien being treated as like this village's like particular like uh savior, spiritual hero.
Mm,
So it's just kind of funny,
spiritual hero.
but really it's more of like they're just trying to figure out like O'Brien or Bashir starts doing some scans. They're trying to figure out like what this creature is, and O'Brien's just like showing more and more that he's just not comfortable with this responsibility.
Yeah, I'm. Yeah, this is not a fun position to be in as an outsider. Just forced into the role. It's like, yeah, no, I don't
Yeah.
know the rules for this position.
Well,
I'm gonna
and then
die.
I think, let's see, they're kind of close to figuring out that this might be something that the Sarah controlled because O'Brien's like looking through all the Sarah's objects and stuff. He's trying to figure something out, and we meet the character. We don't meet him, but he's been in the background for a few scenes. But this is like the first time I think he talks. Is Hovath, who was apparently the Sarah's apprentice, but was not chosen to be the next Sarah. Um, let's
Oof.
see. Um, da, 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 da. Oh, O'Brien's trying to like ask him like, look, I don't even know what I need to do for this whole thing. And Hovath is very clearly not happy about it. He's like, well, you were chosen over me, so you should know better than me, right? And O'Brien's like, look, man, don't blame me when the creature's rampaging through if you don't give me the help now. And then Hovath charges at O'Brien with a dagger, but O'Brien catches it. Bashir like runs in, saves his life, and let's see, trying to figure out like what else is like. Uh, oh yeah, Hovath explains for 9 years I studied, and now like my position's been taken over by you. O'Brien's like, look, I don't even want it. The job's yours, man. Let's see, but they make a point that no one would believe Hovath is worthy of the position because O'Brien's been given it, and that's the
Mm-hmm.
whole point. Uh, yeah, so they explain that like uh, they hold up the bracelet that the Sarah wore, explain that oh yeah, the stone is a fragment from from an orb from the celestial temple. So again, we have like prophet magic here.
Profit
Um,
magic.
let's see, and uh, oh yeah, the village was deeply divided by hate and mistrust. The first Sarah knew that unless he could find a way to unite the people, the village would destroy itself. So he used the orb fragment as a catalyst to give their fears a physical form. Which, okay, we're getting into really high levels of magic here. Uh, and then basically they have to overcome their fear every year so that they're united together. And I'm like, again, it's insanely manipulative and legitimately like if they're giving their fear a physical form, it's actual danger that they're putting people in. Like if they fail to do
Mm.
this, like things do get destroyed, people do get hurt, and they do make a point that like if O'Brien can't do this, then then the village is actually in danger. Uh, Oh, Farron comes in and he figures out like kind of what happened. He's like, "Oh, you have no right to wear those clothes, Hovath. You had your chance to prove yourself and you failed." Hovath says he won't happen again. So apparently, like he had tried to do it at one point and he didn't
Mm-hmm.
do a good enough job. Which, sure, okay.
It's
Um,
his first time doing it, though. It's like, oh, well, okay. Like,
well, it's
one
also
screw
just
up
one of
is.
those. Yeah, it's one of those things where I guess like, well, it's weird too because they call the previous Sarah the first Sarah, which
Um,
or no, they say the first Sarah figured this out. So I'm like, how long has this been going on? Was the old man the first person to do this?
no, I don't think so. The way he talks, the he seemed to have like a particular he wasn't making it up. He like yeah, no, I think he is not the first one. Yeah, he seems to have known what like basically like gone with some sort of mystical force and just been like, yep, he's the one. You will learn, and
Hmm.
then I die. It's not like oh um it doesn't feel like he was the first. It feels like this was something he inherited and then went down. Well, it was supposed to go down to Hovath, but it doesn't. And yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, then we return back to DS9. Varys and Cisco are having a conversation, and again, this is another scene where actually the actress who plays Varys doing a pretty good job because she's like, look, I take responsibility for what happened in the security office, and Cisco's like, look, Jake should have known better. Uh, and like Varys basically explains like, didn't you ever do anything foolish to impress a girl? Cisco's like, okay, yeah, I might have. And she's like, look, Jake's a nice boy, so is Nog in his own way. I enjoy their company. And she's talking about this from a very clinical perspective. Like she very clearly knows what these two boys were feeling for her, and even though Jake called her mid, but whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
like she, Cisco does point out, it's like, look, obviously, with your position, you probably don't get a lot of chance to hang out with people your own age. And she sort of explains, yeah, but I actually wanted to hang out with them because I wanted to learn about you.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, so shows like she's very clever, very cunning. Like honestly, like it's kind of impressive that like she sees this boy she knows is the son of like one of the people at the negotiating table, and she basically uses Jake to get what she wants, but at the same time have fun. I don't know. Like I do like the fact that there's a lot of character for this like random side character in an episode we never see again.
Yeah.
She's
She does
she's
appear in a DS9 novel, but that's a novel. Sorry, novel girl, but you're a novel girl.
but uh she points out that like, oh yeah, when Jake spoke of you, I was reminded of my own parents. He trusts you. He trusts your wisdom. He says you're a great leader.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
like this kind of like let's see, hold on. I want to try and be strong too, but it's difficult. My father, he knew that Navat feared him. If I were to make any concessions, Woban would think I was weak. And Cisco points out, it's like I doubt he would be that foolish, but he's determined to get that land back. Let's see. There's the idea of compromise doesn't mean you're afraid of conflict, sort of deal. Like that's how Cisco sort of explains it. It's like, look, you can't be afraid to deal with these people. You don't have to show fear. You don't have to show weakness. Compromise is neither of those things. And
Right.
he's like, look, I believe I know of an opportunity that could allow both sides to say yes. Varys says, or Cisco says, like, look, you need to work together. And she says, I have an opportunity that will allow both sides to say yes. And again, like, I think she's just a pretty good character. You have the child who's put into this adult responsibility with this adult role. She kind of wants to hang out with
Mm-hmm.
kids to have fun, but at the same time, she's using it to further understand the people she's working with. So she's operating kind of on two different levels. I enjoyed it. I think she's a fairly good role, and done pretty well for an actress that's 15. Like very believable, very like I never felt like it was bad acting.
Uh,
So
I don't know if the
oh
actress is 15. That was the character who was 15.
yeah, I mean
Uh,
regardless, like
what year did this come out?
I think this is season one, so I believe is still 93, maybe 94.
Oh, she's 23. Also, she's from the state of the Forsaken, Florida.
Uh,
She's
wow,
one of
okay,
yours.
she does not look 23. Maybe that's makeup, but uh, I fully believe she was like the age of the character. I don't know, but
Mm,
I guess fine. Yeah, good actor either way, and she finds a compromise. Now that is one thing that's a little bit like I wish this was the A plot, not the B plot, because
hmm
I mean we could finish this off here. Uh, they basically go into like we'll finish the storyteller plot thing ever afterwards, but she and Cisco are having a conversation later. We've already finished with the negotiations, like they're over. Uh,
hmm
Woban apparently accepted the proposal. She's a little bit afraid that he's not going to honor it, but free trade access to both sides of the river would mean a lot to her people. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, she sees Nog and she gives him a kiss on the cheek, to which Nog is like super happy about. Uh, and then Odo shows up, grabs Nog, and says, "You're to clean the security office until it shines." Um,
Yeah, it's gonna
but
suck for
that's
you.
that's the end of that plot. Which again, I thought that's the better plot of the episode. So
Yeah.
we get to the we return back to the storyteller, and O'Brien's basically like, oh, he has to wear the robes, and he's being pressured up here. He's clearly uncomfortable. And Bashir says, look, you know, you have to make them think the Sarah plan. Oh wait, hold on. Let's see. Trying to see what Bashir says. Da-da-da. Oh yeah, so it starts off with Bashir giving the or not Bashir, O'Brien giving the speech, and then lightning strikes and the clouds appear. They make a point that like, oh, I'm not the right person for this, and then they kind of give Hovath the opportunity to jump up and save the day. O'Brien basically says like, "You can do this. The village is strong and unafraid to." No, that's O'Brien that says that. Where is it? Bashir says, "Do you think that maybe the Sarah planned all this? That he knew the village had lost confidence in you, so he chose O'Brien as successor, knowing you would have to rescue him." Uh, so yeah, O'Brien starts the speech, fails, and then Hovath, who performed attempted murder on O'Brien, is kind of just they kind of ignore that, and he's given the
Yeah.
opportunity to save the day. And then Hovath is like, "Look, see for yourself. The Dao Rock is defeated. The village is safe for another year. I did it." And everyone cheers because again, I guess it tracks, right? They have to believe in Hovath to believe that they can defeat the Dao Rock, and like they have to give him an opportunity to prove himself again after he failed. Because if you fail, people aren't going to believe in you, which means they can't believe in themselves, and yada yada yada. But I'm not gonna lie, it's still very much like you attempted to murder O'Brien. Like, you think O'Brien went
Yeah.
back to the station, filled out the report, Cisco came in and said, "Hey, so about this report about this guy who tried to murder you, now leading the village. Yeah, we need to do something about that." Like,
They're leave them in their little no, Holics. Here's what we do. Here's what we do. It's the same policy I apply to any time someone's like, we should change the regime. No, let them be in their little dark age. Either they'll come out or they'll go extinct. Either way, not our
I
problem.
I
Uh,
guess so, but it's part of Bajor, so it's the only reason I would even consider it. But goddamn, it's just so
Holics, you're about to start 20 years of Middle Bajoran conflict. Don't do it.
goddamn it.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
This is what you get today, folks. Me going on my rant about the misguidedness of American foreign policy throughout my entire life.
oh no, we're getting too
Welcome.
political, Pike. Soon we'll
Uh,
have to have a
ne-
podcast.
Who am I going to offend? I'm talking shit about America that pleases the leftists. And I'm saying that uh uh foreign policy shit mucking around in the Middle East at the behest, like it is like, yeah, like at this point the right likes saying like those were mistakes. So it's like, who am I offending, Hollow? Who am I offending? Who am I
Um,
offending?
Everyone. Don't you know
I
you're saying something decisively on the internet? You're going to offend everybody.
Well, you
We're
know
supposed to
what?
talk.
You know
There's a
what?
reason we're talking about a 30-year-old TV show. It's because no one cares about it. No one will get offended about what we say.
Care, and I get offended about it. But
Unironically, I made a tweet yesterday talking about the movie Elements, and I was like, "Oh man, I really hope I don't piss anyone off by saying this because it was going to be like my first thing that's not even controversial, just like I guess like it's topical. So I'm like, oh, I'm worried I'm going to offend somebody.
what did you say on Twitter?
I just said
What
like,
did you
oh
say?
man, like I was talking about the idea of like Pixar fatigue, Pixar movie fatigue,
Oh,
and I'm like, yeah, what's wrong with all these
yeah,
movies? Because Elements is basically like a super flop here. Um, but I guess
yeah.
before we talk about some of that stuff, I suppose, because we can talk about other stuff. But um, so yeah, like Hovath is made the leader of the village. Uh,
Get
O'Brien and
away with
Bashir
it.
return to the yeah. O'Brien and Bashir return to the station, and Bashir basically is like, this will be a fun story you could tell around the station. And O'Brien's like, yeah, not for me. I've had my fill of storytelling for the time being. That's the name of the episode. Uh, let's
No,
see.
no. The episode's name is The Storyteller. He says storytelling. It's not the
Sure.
same, Hog.
All right, my bad, my bad. But O'Brien basically is like, "Yep, suit yourself, Julian." And Bashir's like, "Look, you don't have to call me Julian. You don't really have to do that." And O'Brien's like, "Right, you are, sir." And yeah, that's the end of the episode. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, I thought it was a okay episode. I mean, I like O'Brien and Bashir. So to sort of see their friendship develop and start here, I'm fine with that. It's really just the plot line
Mhm.
they're involved with is not great.
Yeah.
The B plot, I think is pretty good. Obviously, it's just not given. I feel like it's just not given the time. It's not given like enough like development to make this more meaningful. It's just sort of nice. I mean, I'm willing to give this episode a B.
I'm gonna. I'll meet you a B minus.
Okay. I
I'm.
mean, like I think we're
This-
usually the other way, where I'm giving a little bit more of a harsher grade for some of these episodes. But
I just
uh,
do not listen. I'm fine with like I'm fine with Bashir and O'Brien, but the whole episode, the whole plot around them is just
Yeah,
just
it's pretty bad
stupid.
and like morally questionable. But it's also just like, again, if it was like, if you had put like Dax and O'Brien there, it wouldn't have been anywhere near as interesting, and it wouldn't have had like been meaningful going forward because those two don't
Hmm.
really develop like that much of a friendship. Here, it's at
Hmm.
least like, again, the benefit of DS9 is always that because it's more continuity focused, these things matter. It's like if you had an episode,
Hmm.
this episode in TNG, and it was Geordi and Data doing this, then you can still like Geordi and Data, but because the relationship's already developed and there's not really much going forward, there's not really
Hmm.
much the episode gives you. Here, at least you could say, at least if the plot is crappy, at least it's like this is how the Bashir O'Brien friendship starts on Little Rocky steps, but a successful mission nonetheless. Which again, I think that's why this series has such values because there's always those little things that those nuggets of quality that go forward and expand as the series goes on, even in the worst episodes. But yeah,
Yeah.
so B minus overall. I think. I mean, I don't think the episode's skippable, but it's not really ever one I want to rewatch. In fact, I was kind of sitting here like, I don't really know if I want to watch this episode. Like, I remember because we were supposed to record yesterday, and I was just like, yeah, I don't want to do this because I didn't want to rewatch this episode.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. This one's
Trying
just
to,
isn't episode like there's the B plot that's we get Nog and Jake and Girl and Cisco. It's like, yeah, that's a good plot there, but it's not the main focus. And
yeah,
like, yeah.
but yeah, not bad episode. Um, any last things to say, Pike? I swear I will not cut you off this time.
Go ahead, cut me off.
I'm not gonna cut you off. All right. Well, if you're not gonna say anything, then I guess I will just have to end it. All right.
Okay,
Bye
that's
bye,
fine. Go
everybody.
ahead.
Bye bye, everybody. See you next time.
Bye. See ya.